Good morning. This is Pastor Doug. Last Sunday, we continued looking at people of faith in Hebrews 11, looking at heroes of the faith, people who their weakness was turned to strength. And in their time of desperation, the Red Sea parted, the walls of Jericho fell, the enemies of Israel were routed as God raised up leaders during the period of the judges like Gideon and Samson and Jephthah and Barak, and then kings like David and prophets like Samuel. And they triumphed over the enemies of God in very dramatic and powerful ways. And those are exciting to think by faith, look what God does in response to the cries of his people and the way that his people depend upon him. I was reminded in that phrase, their weakness was turned to strength, with the Apostle Paul and some of his struggles with opposition. In 2 Corinthians 12, he talks about having a thorn in the flesh, a messenger from Satan, he said, that was given to him to torment him. He says that 3 times he pleaded with the Lord, take this away. And we don't really know what that thorn was. You think of a thorn as something that's just always there, that's always nagging, that's always causing some level of distress or discomfort. Was it physical? There's some speculation that Paul had some kind of an eye disease that made it difficult for him to read and then to write, or even made him look sort of disfigured, and so not a great appearance. Others say, no, it was more of a person, that there was a personal person that was just out to get him. And he makes references to an Alexander the metalsmith who did him great harm. And yet in the midst of that, surprisingly, the Lord doesn't remove that thorn. Instead, he says to Paul, my grace is sufficient for you, for my grace is made perfect, or my strength is made perfect in your weakness. In other words, that in that sense of weakness, Paul remained dependent. And as he was dependent, he experienced the power of God flowing in him and through him. He endured, he persevered because God was with him. I like these words that he writes in this same passage. He said, therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong. Sometimes God's strength knocks down those walls, opens up the Red Sea. Sometimes God's strength says, I am enough. I will give you what you need day by day in order to persevere and endure. This Sunday, as we wrap up this People of Faith series, we're going to be looking at people who suffered and endured under persecution. Yet God's power was just as evident in their lives, even in the midst of their suffering, than he was in the lives of those where he opened the way and knocked down the walls. I hope you have a great week, knowing that God's grace is enough. Be strong in him. We'll see you Sunday.